about a week or so, we got asked by TRU Ball to kind of talk a little bit about something. So I kind of brought up release execution was something I thought would be a good one to cover because there's such a wide variety of it. I just did a seminar at Lancaster Archery last week, and we talked a lot about it. In fact, this morning it kind of got me a little bit. I practiced last night, speeding my release up because I wanted it to go a little quicker. Well, when I got in there and went a little quick, I shot 2 9s and slowed it down and proceeded to shoot a 327. So to me, what we want to do is talk about how you make sure you have what works good for you, what you're confident in, and all of those, and just kind of go over a bunch of different ones that no matter, I know guys like buttons, they like triggers, they like hinges, and everybody's really personal. I mean, from index triggers, they can work for everybody, and that's just kind of what we want to do. And so a lot of this is going to be off question and answers, ideas, because I have learned doing all the seminars I've done over the years, talking back and forth gives people more ideas than anything I learn a lot too that way, and so it's really cool to see what everybody else learns. But the one thing I have learned is I want, like I said, a trigger or whatever I'm shooting, like my back tension, to have enough tension that I'm not afraid or timid on it. And like I said this morning, I got timid on it and put 2 9s out there that I probably shouldn't have done, even though it worked in practice. And one of the things that I have learned is we can all make a lot of stuff work in practice. I mean, how many guys have shot in practice, shot amazing, and then walked out there and it totally changed. So it's a big part of learning how to set up your release to make it the best for you. So mine, I shoot a back tension, it's fairly slow. Even when I shoot a button, it's fairly heavy. They used to tell me that I couldn't see it, but when I'd get my thumb on the trigger, it'd turn white. But with all of them, I try to pull through because I've learned that if I get timid on it, it's not as good. And if you ever watch Kris, he pulls like crazy. I mean, you think he's going to pull the limbs out of the pockets. So,
yeah, I don't shoot mine very heavy though. I just have a lot of index finger pressure on my back tension and then just kind of relax on it. There's a lot of people that can rotate through them, have constant movement in a back tension and also in the thumb trigger. Yeah. There's also people.
There's
like
guys
that punches it and shoots
great
insanely
scores.
well.
Yeah, and Mikey's has got a little stiffer over the years. His used to be really soft.
Step as well. Super soft.
And so I will never tell you that one won't work, but I will tell you that there's a lot of different ones that can save you from having headaches and stuff. So, does anybody have any questions on any of them? Anything that you? How do I want to put this? I think that one of the biggest things with releases that people just don't realize or think about it, even with executing their shot, is to be able to have something you trust and have faith in. Like, we believe that will do it every time. I think that's, and I get into, and when I do a lot of seminars, one of the things that I get a lot of questions on is target panic. And it comes a lot from being, when I do them, the biggest thing I always say is, I don't know that the term target panic should be the best one for it, but more of a fear of missing. Because it is truly that. And when we get timid on a trigger or we get that stuff, that's when you see somebody can't touch it or they can't put their fingers on there. Really, that's where it leads to a lot of problems. So to me, I will personally always say I like a little heavier release, and that's where it's more advantageous for me. Kris makes his heavy in a way by using his index finger. And so, like I said, when it comes to execution, there's a million ways. And I have learned that there's a reason why TRU Ball or any of these other manufacturers build 50 different releases, because what works for you may not work for you, may not work for me, may not work for anybody. So the biggest part I would tell you when you're doing it is play with a lot of different ones. Find what works best for you. Because again, and test them in local tournaments. I think it's really cool in Europe, the club thing that they have a lot of. With the clubs and everything else. Because in the U.S. we don't have as many clubs that do tournaments and stuff like that. So it's really cool so you can get it tested in those places and different things.
Where you will have some nerves instead of just in practice.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So when you step out here, you're a lot further ahead. Anybody got any questions on shot execution or releases or anything for that matter. We're here
just with I shoot with a hinge release. And with practice it goes very well and it goes very fast. Then you come here and I struggle to get the shot, just to get the release going off. So it's like the muscle tension or something. It's just like it didn't want to go.
One question: do you shoot with the click?
Yes. Click was there every time. Same move.
You get the click and then stop.
Yep.
That's what I just wanted when I have learned a lot with doing seminars. Like I've done one. I did one in San Francisco, and this guy he shot pretty good, and we walked up there, and I watched him pull up, and he got to his click, and it went click, and he started shaking. And so I asked the owner of the shop, I said, does he shoot a lot? You know, is he just weak? Is he not? Or is he older? And he said, no, he's early 30s, and he shoots probably 2 to 3 hours a day. And I said, really? And he goes, well, he works at the airport in San Francisco, and the archery shop is right next to it. So if he goes to the archery shop and practices for 3 hours, he doesn't sit in traffic for 3 hours because he shoots there, and when he's done, then the traffic's gone and he can get home quicker. And so he says he shoots a lot. So we handed him a release without a click in it. Slowed it down so he wasn't afraid of it. And instantly that shaking went away. He was like,
it's just pretty much anticipation.
It's mental.
Yeah.
And so it happens.
Anticipation.
Well, and a lot of times with a click, your body goes, here it goes, it's going to go. You know, and so it stops its motion. It stops pulling. And I will say over the last few years that I've done a bunch of these seminars, I have got rid of more clicks than anything. And in fact, there was a young man who, one of the guys he shoots with got second at Vegas a couple of years ago, and he told me, so I'll bet you the first thing Reo does with you is gets rid of your click. And he said, no, and we did, and the kid goes, man, I'm not shooting as good. And so we did some other things, but he shot his best score he'd ever shot. And he's like, dude, I don't, it doesn't make sense, but it's in here, just like in here, we have a fear of it going off. Is it going to jump? Is it not going to? Is it going to stay there? Is it not? And it's something you have to have that you're not afraid of. So maybe that's something to try.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, a click does make it feel comfortable because you're not afraid of it going off, but it also does that same deal like, here it comes. This is a quiet bunch.
So would you, I'm trying between releasing everything, the tension on my whole arm, and then all my fingers go like this.
Yeah.
Or not at all, and then try to hinge with my shoulder. And I don't know, and I struggle either way.
Everybody is different. And I will tell you the biggest thing that I will tell you when it comes to archery in general, not just release shooting, it's what's comfortable to you.
Yeah.
Because when we all go home, I bet we all sit in our same chair in the same spot every night, right? We have our spot in the couch or wherever, and we all do the same thing. So we are a creature of repetitive nature. So what I would do is what's comfortable for you is most repeatable, because when you get nervous, you fall back on it. I mean, American football, they pay millions of dollars for their quarterbacks, the guys that throw the ball. And if they got a guy that throws like this, they won't even pick him because they're afraid of that throw, because they can go teach him to do this, but as soon as he gets nervous and amped up, it's right back to this. So to me, when I'm working with people and talking about it, it's the biggest thing is what's comfortable. Like Kris puts a lot of index pressure. That doesn't work for me. Like I can't do that. It just is something that I can't do. So it's what I can repeat when I get out there, and it's just the best thing for you or whatever. So whatever's comfortable, like in your hand, and is just second nature, I guess would be the term.
But it works for me outdoors when it's cool.
Yeah.
And now here I'm all sweaty.
Yeah.
And if I relax, then it goes. It does go smoothly, but in little shocks.
Yeah.
And I'm getting nervous, and then
yes.
goes
Yeah.
to pieces.
So maybe try the other way inside and see if it's more comfortable, because it's what's going to be able to be repeatable. And if it's out here and shaky, then your body's going to go into a whole different reaction, because it's going to be like, oh no, it can't hold still, it's got to, and it goes south.
No.
Do you have anything on your release, tape-wise?
No.
Nothing?
Okay.
That might be something to try out too, because you get the tape on there and you're always confident that it's not going to move. So it's more
Or slip out of your hand.
Yeah, it's not going to
It's the
slip.
same stuff you do on your handle.
I use like hockey stick tape.
Uh-huh.
It's really thin
More of a cloth type.
tape.
Okay. I'll try that. Thanks.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have with the click and the release. Yeah. I was is doing it's a recurve shooter. Dus I've been over to compound. And it was the eerste search now what for the release I have to choose. So I have eerst a drop, dus eerst
A trigger.
yeah, trigger, yeah. Yeah, and that was not for me. I get a little nervous. In the starting was it best good. Was yeah, you can in the most time, yeah, you shoot after you aiming at the target and I went like, and just I get een kantel, dus een hinge release. En daar zit ook de klikker in. En die klik. Dus I put the click away and looking it better and better. Dus the click was not good for me.
No, it ain't.
Yeah, on that recurve you have a click, and that click was decided on the click.
Well, the difference is like with the recurve is you want to know what draw length you're at. You want to use it to help check, because I mean, that can change your impact a lot.
I think it means to say it's like the trigger of the click of the recurve, because then you let go and then it happens.
Yeah. Well, in so many clicks, when it goes click, your dot bounces, and so when you're shooting, you have a window of how long your shot's good. Because when we all miss, 90% of us will be like, I should have let up, and then it's like it's bad, right? So we know that. So that's what happens a lot of times is when you get into that click, you're in that window and it bounces, and it takes longer to get the shot to go when your window's only. So it really closes your window of a good shot down a lot.
Maar if you bounce, then just your aiming is away. Dus, you start off new, and then is it?
Yeah.
Dus I have decided to. I asked the store, can the click go away? Yeah, the click can go away. Put it out.
Yeah, I've changed one out today already.
Then you can aiming and you have more control of the release and you're shooting. And it's going well.
And you can build up tensions in a whole different way. I mean, like Kris does it with an index finger. I do mine with more it moving in this way, so that and a lot of times if it's moving, it's hard for it to go forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I see that when guys are collapsing and doing that stuff, it's when stuff can go forward.
Yeah. You put together and
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I decided to shoot a trigger after trying a few different types of releases. Hinge, tried sort of back tension, and I stuck with the trigger because in the UK it's always windy. It's never not windy. And anything else I found, I can't stop that anticipation creeping in. It's going to go without me knowing. Whereas the trigger, I'm just confident that it's not going anywhere. And I don't know unless I've done spasms or on my shoulder pops. But I found, do you find that most release aids, no matter what type they all sort of shoot in a similar fashion in terms of the shot process itself? Like my coach always said to me, it's about keeping those pressures and sort of pulling through the release and letting the pressures set it off.
Yeah.
Do you find that they're all sort of the same? So I find there's a lot of people like the big guys like Kris White and there's a lot that say sort of like if they're in wind, then they're not going to shoot their hinge or their back, they're going to switch to a trigger.
See, and I've done that. Like I've tried it before, and I will tell you, I prefer if I'm shooting one and shooting it well, I will stay with it. Whether it's a hinge or I mean, for 90% of my outdoor career, well, I take that back. I won a World Cup final with a button, but like for the most part, I do shoot my hinge 99% of the time. There's very little that I will switch to a button. Switching your heart back and forth is hard.
I shoot a hinge for everything, and when it's windy like that, I'll make my release heavier to make me fight it more.
Yeah.
To put more pressure against it to try to settle my dot down.
Okay.
But and in part with like that, like he's talking about, is you get like recurve shooter scores in the wind don't vary as much as ours.
Yeah.
Because they have all that weight to pull against. So like you say, build that tension up. It's huge.
Yeah.
And another, like you're talking about pulling and making them go off all the different ones. Like it's really weird, and when we talk about a lot of these, like if you grabbed a bar up here and pulled up, your hands naturally close.
Yeah.
Because you can't pull when it doesn't close. So if you've got your hand on a release and you're pulling, it's going to naturally close that hand, just like as if you're pulling on a bar. And so it's a good way to keep tension. If you lay your finger on it or get your hand in your release and just pull, or even on this, pull, it closes up because those tendons, when you start putting that tension there, will shut your hand.
Yeah. Do you find, are there any releases that have, like, the thing I like about the trigger most, like I say, is that it won't go off until I get to that trigger.
Yeah.
So, but like a lot of the other releases, I find there's no, I don't know, safety, for want of a better word. There's no sort of...
The sweet spot that TRU Ball builds with a back tension that has a safety on it. I worked with a gal from India that actually she won Lancaster last year. She was second at the World Outdoor. I think she was third at the one. She come and spent a week at my house, and I told her she had target panic, and she was like, no. I stiffened the release up while we were at the club, and she instantly went like that. And I said, see, I mean, it tells on you. And so I wanted to teach her a back tension. And so it really was like, I handed her one, and she couldn't get the concept of like keeping it forward as you came back, and she kept sending them into the wall. So that's when I went and got one of the sweet spots, and she's learned how to drop back and set the safety off. In fact, she still shoots that same release. And it's, as for a safety, some people can't deal with like how you have to draw the release. So sometimes that safety is the really big thing.
Yeah.
So you would recommend to stay with one release if you have one you feel good with? So
Yeah,
my
that'll
reason
work.
is because I'm shooting a trigger, and from time to time I feel like I got no pressure in my back and switch to a back tension, to a hinge, just to readjust my back tension and get. Yeah,
I don't say that you can't switch, but I would say if you get one and get it working really well, and just like why do you go back to the button if you shoot the back tension and it gives you good tension? You know what I'm saying?
I personally feel a bit better with a trigger release, so it's a bit more comfortable for me. So
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but that's the thing. It's like say, because if the back tension makes you do something that's right, like maybe you could get more comfortable with using it a couple times in a tournament to figure out like it just is. Archery is really funny. Like when you walk out there and when we walk out to shoot anywhere in a tournament, it's like sticking your feet in the cold water right at first. You're like, it's a big shock, and we're all like, woo, and then we get our feet in and we get used to it. So to me, it's like learning. If you've got something that really helps you repeat something, maybe it's something to look at, like letting you get more used to it and more of a friend, I guess, would be a term. But there's nothing wrong with going back and forth. I just know when I go to a tournament, in the middle of a tournament to swap because it got windy, yeah, it doesn't end well usually for me. I've never had that luck.
I would never change in
Yeah.
between a tournament. But for example, I'm training twice a week and once a week with that release and once a week with this one, just to get a feeling for it. And
Yeah.
And this release, the tension release from TRU Ball, super great training aid, probably at home. You know, I don't having a resistance release in a tournament when you're nervous. You know, there's a lot of variables that can happen there. You know, because when I'm nervous, I probably end up pulling harder, but I don't feel like I'm pulling enough. You know, so having a training aid that at home gets the repetition down might be something too like that.
I don't disagree, but and like all of these tension releases that you hook on, you just pull and they go off, are really interesting. We were having this discussion a couple of weeks ago, and how you can even take a bow scale and just turn them just a little bit and get different readings on your bow scale. Every tension release, just a little bit, can change how they go off. So when you're in a tournament, they're hard to be consistent. So to me, it's like they're great when you're at home and shooting. And I will tell you one of the things that's helped me learn how to shoot a release. I'll get up close to the target bale, close my eyes, and just pull through and learn to get the feel of what I want. Because I would say you want to be able to have your release be such a normal thing that it's like walking. Because then all you got to do is aim, and everything gets a lot easier. But we spent a lot of time working on that, and that's where we end up with lots of fights.
I tried tension release years ago.
Yeah.
And when we start practice, it go with a scale on, and it go with 16 pounder.
Yeah.
Then you shot 300 shot and put it on the scale again, and it was different.
Yeah. I think they're a little more consistent now.
Yeah, I think they're better. This is
Yeah, but that makes them hard for tournaments. But you're right, like it does, because they can change because it's a spring that's just being compressed, and the more you shoot them, the more they'll do that. But like, we have a friend of ours that had target panic so bad that he's worked on really just shooting it this way, and he said it's helped him a bunch.
I shoot compound for 1.5 years now,
Mhm.
and started with a trigger release. And any advice for me to switch to a hinge release? I want to try it, but I don't know how to execute right. In our club, we don't have any compound arches.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing would be get up close and learn to shoot it up close rather than back far. Because if you can learn to get up close and learn how to like load it and execute the shot, when you get back there, you'll be further ahead.
I would start really heavy too when you're first starting.
So it's slower.
So it's slower to get to go off, but then you still get all the motion of what needs to happen, and then you can start lightening it up. And it's the same motion, just quicker.
I tried once to at 80 meters and fire to the wall.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Up close, so you learn and make it slow, so it's not going off too quick on you, and it's nice and easy.
Okay.
Yeah, because and even at home, like you can set up something that you can practice loading it too, because that can even be a challenge. And you don't want to be on the line at the club or whatever going like this, and guys are like, come on, hurry, and then you start doing dumb things. And yeah.
Similar to like someone just starting. So if they shot before, but maybe it was recurve and they're changing to compound, haven't done it before. Have you seen a typical kind of how you would, with types of release aid, walk someone through things to try in a certain order, for example, or start them on a thumb release and then work from there and see if you like it? What have you seen people going through? If they've shot before, so they're not brand new, but
Yeah, if I had someone that I was going from a recurve to a compound, I'd probably go to a back up close and just be like, pull like you're pulling through your clicker, and get them up there with their eyes closed for a while before I ever let them. Like, I think that's one of the hardest part we do as people. We want to go back and teach ourselves at 20 yards because it's way more fun to shoot at something. And so we get back there, and then that's where the bad habits come from. Like, oh, it's got to go, it's got to do. Because we do, like you talk about shooting in the wind, there's dumb things we do to hit the middle. Like, we will rush a shot, we'll do things, because ideally that's all we want to do. So if I can get them up close and start teaching them there, and then I take them back to 20 yards, it's usually a lot more successful than not. Kind of agree with that.
100%.
Because I also learned that if a guy learns a back tension, he can usually shoot any release. Or if a guy shoots a button, he can struggle to go to a back tension or whatever. But a back tension is kind of the like teach-all. If some guy can shoot that, he can usually shoot a button, he can shoot any of them.
You're going to say, I'm sorry.
What?
You're going to say it depends on what you like best, but in general, would you prefer the relaxing method or just getting more tension in your ring finger to make the hinge?
Well,
I like the more tension, the better.
Yeah.
Personally, because I mean, if you're relaxing it, then stuff's going forward where you can creep up on the bow. You know, where if you got a hold of it with a lot of tension, you know, everything's gonna flow better. I feel like.
Yeah.
and if you have a lot of tension in those ways, like if you hold your hand behind your head and somebody tells you to move your index finger, you have to go from thinking here to there.
Mm-hmm.
And then where did your dot go on the target? You don't know. So guess what? Now you've done this, now your release is going off. Who knows where it's going?
Yeah.
So to me, a big part is to be able to be aggressive and just do this. Because when you're shooting, you can do this all day long and still focus right there. Where if you're doing things back here, like move this finger, I have to go, from here to here. And it's weird because our minds, to get those fine movements, even with our toes, I was in the doctor's office the other day and he had a little thing that was touching toes and trying to get me to tell him which one it was. And like, I really had to sit and think about it. And he's like, isn't that weird? And I'm like, well, I teach that when I talk about archery and releases is if you're thinking of something, of moving a finger, I really have to go from there to there. And he was an archer and he's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, that's why you want something that you can get on, do this, and then execute rather than like, oh, I got to put more here, more there, more here, more here. Like, just execute, you're way further ahead.
In the same way, I just switched from a hinge release with a click to the same model without a click. And I'm currently using the thumb rest as a safety. So I'm just keeping it pulling. And then I'm moving the thumb away, and for the click release, that would initiate the click and then the execution. For the non-click, because the click drives me mad on a tournament setting. That sometimes feels like I'm supposed to keep the thumb, just pull through it like that. And it's like
some people do, some people don't. I've seen. I mean, do you take your thumb off?
Yeah,
my thumb comes off.
It goes behind.
And that's a big part of being able to make it a little slower. Because if you still got your thumb on there to make it go off, it's going to have to be pretty fast release. So if you can take your thumb off and get after it, you can pull harder and get through it more.
And taking your thumb off, putting it back is going to relax all the muscles in your forearm as well. Because if you got a hold of that, everything's tight here. You get it back there, relax your thumb, everything's loose, which will be able to help you make a better, more consistent shot.
I found there's not much in the way of options in terms of I shoot the TRU Blade Pro trigger, and there's not much options in the way of sort of different thumb knobs. I found sometimes with the one it comes with quite thin barrel. I can't quite get the sort of pressure in the pad of the thumb. Kind of comes a bit further back, sort of behind the handle, which I find that tends to make it more difficult to release. Have you found any problems with different releases? And stuff? Like, I only use 2 fingers as well on mine instead of 3 or 4.
Yeah, I will say that I've seen so many different, like, I guess you'd call aftermarket parts for triggers to try and get them where you want them that I have seen. When I saw one at a seminar at Lancaster last week that a guy had like a piece of like metal tubing that come down and went like this, and I'm like, but he said it's what made him comfortable, and so I'm like, well, all right, but it's.
I know Tim Gillingham had his in the pad to get it to fire. Where you look at Mikey or anybody else, Stefan, they all shot theirs out kind of towards the end. So I mean, that's just personal and where you want that.
And if you can get it usually on there more, you're usually less afraid of it.
Yeah.
Where if guys are out here just on the edge, it starts to get a lot more.
Yeah. I
nerve-wracking.
found that crank the tension up on mine just to.
Yeah.
So I could get the thumb on there because especially with the larger barrel, I found more comfortable for the larger barrel. I think just the hand size and what have you.
Well, and if you get the larger barrels and some of that stuff in that ways, it's more leverage on it, so it goes off quicker. So it makes the release lighter in a way. Because if you think about it, just like if you have something you're trying to loosen a bolt and you have a big long thing to wrench on, it'll loosen it easier because there's more torque in that leverage.
Yeah.
Improving your muscle memory and compare muscle memory compared to mental game. How you before the tournament, how to improve your mental game, working on muscle memory.
I think if you get your muscle memory really good, like you have confidence in it, you feel it, your shot is the same over and over again. Like when I do my seminars, my wife has helped me a ton with them, and we talk about like your mental game on it. And she's like, I want to give you an idea of something, and she did a person walking on a tightrope, right? Because they have this tightrope, and if it's not tight, like she said, equated to practice, and I said that makes sense, right? Because you want some sort of base for you to have. And then the pole's got to be the right length for you to work on and stuff like that. So you have this balance. And so it's like your bow, getting it set up and everything in that way. But he's walked across a rope like that for how many times? He knows how to do it. So the biggest part with learning how to shoot your release and having it in that same, your muscle memories over and over again, your confidence is way higher. Like you're able to, it's just like I say, if you do it enough and you know how it feels and it feels right, it is like walking. I mean, when you're shooting good, it's like, I mean, you can almost set a clock by it. So it builds your confidence. And so to integrate it into like a mental game, it's really easy because it really is a good way to get yourself more and more confident in it.
Yeah, but what about when you shoot maybe golf final?
Yeah.
You shoot 14 very good shots.
Yeah.
And you must shoot the 10 to win. And on only this one arrow, you got target panic. Yeah.
Well, I would.
It's for everyone have this problem. Like Max Schlosser, me, everybody.
But this is where I learned to deal with stuff like that in a different way. Like I talk to myself constantly talk to myself. When I'm down to the last few arrows, I mean, when you walk to that line to shoot that last arrow to win the gold medal, or to shoot the perfect score, or to do what you want to do, I will tell you, I walk up there and I will tell myself I've shot 14 perfect shots. What is one more? Why can't I do one more? Like I've done it this much. One more is nothing. And so, like I have learned that, dude, usually my last few arrows are way quicker than my first few, because I've got to that point. It's like, hey, this is how hard it was. Now and to me, I struggle when I watch Mike because he's a good friend. We had dinner at his house last night. I mean, I love Mike, but it's like I don't know that he's figured out how to talk himself through that. I mean, we laughed because he shot a 7 against Kris at the World Championships, and he's like, I've done it. And so that's a whole different process in my mind. Is if you've got a good shot process, you can always fall back on it. But to be able to talk yourself through it, I think is the biggest thing when it comes to that stuff. Like, I mean, when you're shooting the 150, missing the last arrow is like the hardest thing in the world to do because it's one of. I mean, when I shot the world record with 150 with 12 X's, I walked into the last stand and I already held the world record at 150 and 10, and I shot an X in there and I was like, all right, now don't do anything dumb. You have 11 X's. Make sure and hit the 150. Because this is where we get in trouble. We start thinking something else that's really dumb rather than executing a good shot. And I shot, and I barely hit the 10 ring. And so I got mad at myself and said, hey, dummy, you know how to shoot this. You've shot how much in there? Shoot that same shot you've been shooting. And I walked up and put the last one in the X. So it's kind of one of the things that we got to learn how to teach ourselves what to do and fall back on what we've learned.
Recommend trying like just as many releases, as many styles as but like the new guys like since you're only been from that for a year and a half for
Yeah.
So I've tried trigger, that's what I've settled on just so there's no anticipation there for me. Didn't like hinge too much, really hated the back tension. But like is it worth trying different rounds, different types, different styles? Like I think the biggest thing between the Blade Pro is the weight bit, having the brass in it just feels so much better in the hand. Whereas I found a lot of other brands that it almost feels like there's nothing in your hand, you know.
Yeah, when you're new and trying it, I would say try different ones. Kris doesn't like heavy releases. He doesn't. In fact, when we were shooting the HBC when he first came to TRU Ball, and he's like, "Man, I wish I made that in aluminum." I said, "It's funny, I have the prototype, and it was in aluminum." So he still has that release today. Like it's so everybody's personal. Like, I mean, you see how many archery stuff is out here. It's because everybody is so different. You may like the weight in your hand. I like the weight in the hand. He doesn't. Some people may like this finger further than this finger. Like archery is so personal, and it's like when you drive your car, you have it set just for you to see and perform the best. Why should archery be any different? And in fact, when I talk about it a lot, like we talk about going and shooting club tournaments or other tournaments before you go to the big ones, it's like test driving your race car on the racetrack. You go and see what it does. And so to me, it's like play with stuff. Find what works best for you. I mean, when you're getting close to a tournament, you got to kind of taper it down and figure out where you're at. But for the most part, there may be something that just fits you better and works good. So I would never be afraid to try anything.
I can tell you, I change my bow, my release constantly.
Yeah.
In practice, constantly, just to see what I like better, kind of deal.
And I've done it in the middle of rounds too. I've been at we're at World Team Trials in the U.S. when we shot 144 arrows for qualification, and the first 72 I didn't feel was really good, so I put like 6 twists in my bowstring because it felt long, and shot the second half and went from like 4th or 5th place to 1st. So it's learning. Like, I'll be honest with you, it may be like playing, but also it's learning. When you go and do it, learn a lot. Like Ed Eliason, a guy who shot Olympic recurve with us a lot, his big thing was to me, he's like, you just went and threw arrows if you went and practiced and didn't learn something. You know, if you're not trying something, you're just throwing arrows. And I have a guy back home at our local club that I will honestly tell you, he probably shoots 3 times as many arrows as I shoot. But honestly, he doesn't get any better. Because he just throws arrows. He doesn't work on something, he isn't thinking about it, he isn't trying something, so it's always like he's just throwing arrows. So he doesn't push himself to other levels, because that's an email I get a lot of, like, what happens when I plateau? Well, the biggest part is I'll say, hey, we'll try this, and like, oh, I don't really want to because I'm shooting. And it's like, well, you know, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect it to get different. And so that's what, like, I think a lot of people in archery are like stuck right here. We're like, oh, we're getting good, we don't want to touch it, instead of going, yeah, let's keep pushing to see where we can go.
More a question about not executing. When my shot window closes, I feel like I'm punching through the hinge, like yanking
Ripping
through it. And I know I should have let down. Sometimes I get them in, most of the times I don't. It's more like, yeah, well, wing it, don't want to build up again. Any tips on, except let it down, of course?
Well, let it down is number one, but I would say work on maybe a little stiffer trigger so you're not afraid of it, so you can get it through quicker. Like, I love when we talk about releases, and this is one of the things that even in my mind, it makes no sense. I will slow my release down and it goes off faster. Like, even today, I told you, like, I had speeded mine up enough that I got timid on it, and that's when I missed them 2 points. I won't lie. I'm not sugarcoating it. I did it. It was me. Not my equipment, not anything. It was me. And as soon as I slowed it down, I actually shot faster because I wasn't afraid of it. It was like boom, boom, boom. I looked over and I'm like, I'm off the line, and 90% of the people are still on the line, and I'm like, this is dumb.
But that's, you know, also have self-discipline at home. You know, when you're at home and score doesn't matter, when you go, man, I should have let that one down, but I didn't because it doesn't matter. It does matter later on. You know, so self-discipline at home helps self-discipline here.
And on top of that, like, you can do drills when you're done shooting that my dad taught us. Draw up, aim, and when it leaves the spot you want to hit, like say you hold it in the 10 ring, if it leaves that, let up. And just do that. Don't shoot the shot. Just do that. Work on that maybe 10, 15 times when you're done shooting. It'll make you tired. Man, it'll make you tired. But if you'll do that, it'll really teach you 2 things. It teaches you how to be, like, patient, and it'll teach you how to be disciplined, because you're gonna know, okay, now it's leaving this, I let down. Now it's leaving. And in fact, last week at Lancaster, one of the young kids, he was at our first seminar we ever did there, and he had target panic so bad he cried. And I put him through let's shoot some blank bell, work on this, and for a month he worked on it. And now he's a really good shooter, except for he's just lackadaisical. He's like, doo-doo-doo-doo, just like you say. He's like, oh, it's not there. And so after the first day of the seminar, I said to him, I want to watch you be more disciplined. I want you to let down. I want you to tell me how many good shots you have. And literally for the whole next day, and the kid's, I think, 15, shot at 299 for the regular round, and then we did some team rounds, and I'll bet he shot another 40 arrows and didn't miss a 10. But it was him understanding the discipline that made the biggest change. And so I think Kris is right 100%. Like, the difference between the guys that are up here at the top a lot and the guys that are down here is these guys, not everybody has the perfect day. I mean, there's going to be days that it's just like, ugh, but you work harder and you do the discipline for those days versus the days that are. And so I think that's a huge part.
How much time you shoot with closed eyes because I shoot almost 2 years. And when I go to 5 meter, close my eyes and rotate the top tension, I feel like boom, boom, it's okay. But when I go for regular distance, for 18 or 15 meters, I rotate and don't feel this. I must move my hand with my muscle, not with trigger execution, with the tension.
Well, I don't know how long Kris does it. I mean, I personally, I had target panic at 12 so bad I quit archery. I hated it. I hated archery. I couldn't drop on the target without, my dad would say count to 3 and I'd get to 1 and I'd collapse and they would touch. And I was like, I hate this. I don't want to look at it. And I didn't start back up till I was 19 years old when a kid challenged me and said I shouldn't have the wild name because Dad was winning world championships and he said I shouldn't have it. So I'm being a competitive was like, oh, I'll prove to you. And I went and looked at leagues that night, but I knew that target panic was going to come back. So we worked up a system of like, for 1 month, for a minimum of a half hour every day, I would go and spin it in front of the blank bell, just right there with my eyes closed, up close, just doing it. And for that whole month, I never shot 20 yards. I never shot at a target. I never opened my eyes. Because what happens is we are such funny creatures that we'll aim at an arrow hole. Like we'll literally go and like, here, let's aim at an arrow hole. So that's why closing your eyes is so important. But so when you step back, it kind of, you revert back to what you did. So for 1 month, if you did that for 30 minutes, we kind of learned that would kind of reset everything.
But with bow or only with
Oh, with bow. Yeah, just like, no, with your bow, just like you're shooting. Up close, close your eyes, get up there, and just boom, execute, feel it. Because you talk about muscle memory. That's all you're doing.
Yeah.
You're teaching your body how to do it so that it's like you don't think when you walk, right? So why do we think we can just grab a release? It's like running without like learning to walk. You know, we're back here aiming, we're doing all like you had 15 things to it, but if we'll stay close and spend that time to do it, then you shouldn't have that problem.
Yeah, about 6 years ago, you released the video on YouTube.
Yeah.
Muscle memory and how to fix cycle time.
Yeah.
I do this in 3 months, I think.
Yeah.
It's 10,000 shots for blank bay.
Yeah.
And then to the target, but not for scoring.
Yeah.
It helped me a lot. After this year, I shot my Swiss 700. And 3 years later, I got an European medals.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it helps a lot. But I coaching him. Nearly 2 years, and in my opinion, he at this moment he not have a target panic.
Yeah.
But because he is not like
I don't collapse.
Yeah, he not collapse.
But there's lots of forms of target panic, right?
Yeah.
Like there's some that we can't even aim at the target, like we hold below it. Like there's people that mentally can't even aim there because they're like, oh, if it gets in there, it's got to shoot. Oh, no, it's there. No. Like, it does.
When I kick, I have sign in target.
Yeah.
But when I think my tension release, my side is my point is going down, and I take the ball up and
a little bit of anticipation.
Yeah,
it's all that. It's just like it's going. It needs to be on the. It's all anticipation on it.
And that's what part of target panic is. It's anticipation of what's going on.
Also target panic. I got target panic that I'm under the yellow and I cannot put it back.
Yeah.
Or last year I have only 1 arrow per year. For me, it's target panic because I am in the center and my brain faster, and I execute like only 1 arrow. So
and so that's a big like
this one. It's very hard to fix it.
Oh, it's target panic.
Career breakers for a lot of people.
A lot. There's people that come and go. 100%.
So
Like I will tell you, the one year Roger Willett won like 3 World Cups of the 4 that year, and I won the other one. It was really windy, and my wife talking about a button. She goes, "Man, why is Roger just killing it?" And I said, "Because he's punching it." And she's like, "Well, why don't you learn to do that?" And I said, "Well, I can tell you, I've been around the sport long enough. Rogers will come and go. I will be around a long time." And that's kind of what, like, the biggest part when you talk about punching or using that stuff. It's usually they are short-lived careers. Like, they're this long versus this long.
And there are some that have mastered it.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. It's especially, I think, with the bows with the higher let-offs now, I think make a huge difference. But it's still something that, like, Tim Gillingham is one of my favorite. We live 2 hours apart, and I can't tell you how many arrows I've seen up in the rafters at the local club. But he'll punch them all, and I mean, when he's on, it's all in the middle. But when it's off, it's like, woo.
So. Can you elaborate a little bit more what's going on in your head while you're executing the shot? What you're thinking about while talking with yourself?
What was that? What goes on in my head?
Yeah, what goes on in your head
when you execute?
You know, I just nothing. No. You know, I just try to, you know, talk myself up in my head to make myself more confident. You know, I don't think about my release going off or anything like that. I just concentrate on aiming, pretty much telling myself, you know what, you're number one, shoot it in the middle, you know how to do it. Just talking myself up to keep the confidence in my head is what goes on in my head.
And mine is more like, I try not to think about anything but execute. Just make the good shot, let the dot sit there and execute. Because the NFA Indoor Nationals, I think for 4 years in a row, I shot 120. And the 5th year, we're standing there and I'm shooting, and I hear an airplane come over. And in all the years I'd been there, I'd never heard that. And I'm at full draw, I'm like, I've never heard that. And I missed. So it's like, you know, if you can stay focused where you're at, you're usually better off.
What about direction of travel of your release hand or sort of back unit? What do you how do you describe it? Is it straight back? Is it back and round?
Honestly,
or does he go down to that detail?
To me, it's all depends on where it breaks with the tension you've built up.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I see so many people fake back follow through.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you see the guys that hammer the trigger and then do this. Yeah. Like, that's one that I see a lot of. But like, to me, if I'm on there and I'm pulling, it's a natural, whichever way it's going to go. Whichever way the bow, I mean, because you're aiming, you're doing all this stuff. There's a lot of variables in that area. Yeah. So it's just going to break whichever way it's going to come off, wherever you're pulling.
So unique to every individual.
No, it'll be super individual. Because like I said in archery, again, we will all go, and even hop in our cars, right? Steering wheels are in a certain place. But we're such a creature of comfort. And the cool part in archery nowadays, dude, bows can be tuned to everybody. They have all the technology to do it. Your sights can move, your rest you can get it to work. So now that you can take and make it you, it's usually way better.
How do you think about it? Do you think about it as the force is going directly back straight? Or,
yeah. With me, a lot of it is just I keep pulling. Yeah. Like I'll tell myself to take this elbow and touch the back wall.
Yeah.
Like touch the wall back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pull super hard against it, so it's pretty much straight back.
Yeah.
You know, there's other people that I've seen it come off like this every time.
Yeah.
And it's
in the middle.
Still hits the middle. So
sometimes I hear someone talking about having the 2 of the same type of release, so he has 2 hinge releases, exactly the same, and one of them is going, it's set harder than the other one, so it's going faster or slower, and he trains with them both, and it's sometimes he switch. But
yeah, I can see it for training, but in a tournament, I can see it causing you a lot of anguish. Like if you grab the slow one and you're like sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, why isn't it going? Why is it going? Because that's one of our biggest things, right? Yeah. Why isn't it gone? Why isn't it's there? It's sitting there. Go, 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 go.
Yeah.
So you had one just a minute ago, and it makes it worse too. Because if you grab the fast one and you get up in there, it goes boom, and it goes off really quick. I mean, even your normal release. How many people have grabbed their normal release and had one go off really quick? I guarantee you that second one was way slower.
You grab it
way slower. Way more oh yeah, way slower. Or if you have one that takes forever to go off, your next one's going to be as quick can be because it's like you're not afraid of it. Our mind is like our worst enemy. It is the worst. And so, I mean, It's not. I've heard guys that do that. I mean, I don't do it because I guess maybe I'm not that consistent. I'm vary as much as anything.
How do you figure out if the shot takes too long for you personally? So you got a shot timing in you, and when do you figure out is a part where you should let it go and build up a new shot?
When I'm not aiming where it should be. Because
so as long as you're sitting in the middle or like
if it starts to feel, if I feel like weaknesses in my arms and it's still sitting there, I might push it a little longer. But if it starts to move, because usually if you feel tensions in your arms, it starts to move. Because your body and that bow are usually two things. Like I watch a lot of different. I mean, I try to pay attention to a lot of different sports, and I hear them talk about how long like a rifle shooter can do this or that, and I'm like, they're so different because they're not holding back 16 to 20 pounds or 8 pounds. So it's a whole different animal. I mean, so to me, it's like, as long as the dot is where it can go off and you're in that realm and you're not shaking too much. You can feel that coming. We all know, like, yep, it's coming. Here comes that. I mean,
as soon as your shot starts to break down.
Yeah.
You know, I don't let down as much as I probably should. But as soon as it leaves the 10 ring, it's coming down.
Very good questions.
What's your holding weight, and would you recommend more holding weight or heavier bows, heavier mass weight bows or stabilized?
I don't know. What is yours?
I'm shooting. It's pretty close to 17 pounds of holding weight. Obviously, if I put more weight on the front of my stabilizer, I would like to bump it up a little bit. The holding weight, it gives you more leverage to push against. But I stay right around the 17 ounces, 17 to 20 on the front, and I'm at 17 pounds of holding weight.
Then I'm about 18 pounds of holding weight, and I'm right in between that outgoing from 16 to 20 ounces out front in that area. Because I think that's like that kind of question, like talk about, because it does two things. It helps set your release off too if you're pulling against it, because it gives more pull, but it also cleans the shot up. I don't think people really realize what holding weight does. I mean, if you have a string right here and it's pulling, it's more likely to go straight that way versus if it's really is tougher to clean stuff up. Because I had a gal shooting one of the new Hoyts at our seminar last week, and she was shooting 75% let off, and she's like, man, I get these weird 8s and 7s. Like, I can't figure it out. And I said, well, let me do something. I changed her bow and let off, and she was like instantly like, oh, they're gone. And I'm like, well, whatever you're doing hasn't changed, but the holding weight has cleaned it up a lot.
Yeah, the more string tension you have is going to be less critical for face pressure, release different holding it in your hand.
So you prefer or say less leather?
Yeah. Yes. I do personally, especially like in the wind. We talked about the wind in a recurve, right? Recurve scores don't change a ton in the wind. They do a little bit, but not a ton, unless it's really dramatic wind. Where a compound, if there's a little breeze and it's enough, it can change a lot because guys are trying to hold still and it's moving. But because they have so much holding weight back there, it makes a difference. And I've looked over time and watched it. It doesn't change as dramatic. So I do like a little more holding weight. But now in that same part, you get too much holding weight, your shot window is so much smaller.
Okay.
So you got to be careful and get the balance of what you can handle and what will work best.
I shoot the PSE Super RTX and can change from 75 to 65. So I should try it.
Are you at 75 now? Yeah, I went. I felt like 75 aimed way better, but my shots were so much more inconsistent. 65, I wasn't strong enough to make that shot constantly. So I'm at 70 now. But I've always stayed in that 17 to probably like 18 and a half pounds of holding weight. And even like on the Hoyts, their SVX cameras classified at 65, but it's really 68 to 70% level. is what it actually is.
Because we were talking to somebody today, and they're like, and now these people got the new cam that they can go to 65. He says they're putting it on 65, and they're like, woof, like this is hard, because they thought they had 65 before. So, yeah, lots. Like I will tell you, when I walk away from stuff, like it's always like, what can I try? What could I learn? And like, there's a lot to play with and just sink in.
Your holding weight is different indoor than outdoor.
Mine's pretty close to the same.
Weight, the holding weight is more stable.
I usually shorten my draw length up a little bit going outside, compared to indoors, just so I can be a little bit more aggressive on it for the weight.
But for the most part, honestly, my bows are real similar indoors to outdoors, and that there's a reason for that, because when you make dramatic changes, it's really a lot different. Where if you're doing the same thing over and over, it's not as bad. Because the bow reacts different with littler arrows, lighter arrows versus the big heavy ones.
Do you find a benefit in sort of practicing your release and follow through, like stream, like been watching like Knock on TV and stuff, and you say like initial setup, you know, he was using a bit of stream like a or some shot trainer, but I find I've tried it, and there's a lot of guys that like to be natural tall, be walking along the fields, running it with it, and I can't think it just doesn't feel right without the weight in the bow.
I don't think it's the same. Not even close. I mean, we're all talking about Knock on TV, right?
I haven't
actually shot a tournament in 20 years. Like, to me, it's like there's a reason you shoot a bow in a tournament. It's totally different, and the weights of it. I mean, it changes how your hand. I mean, heck, we can put 2 ounces on the side, and it changes the way it feels. So to say that I'm just going to shoot this string, it's going to make me the same as it was, yeah, I don't know about that.
I do have an AccuBow that I shoot at home, like when it's, you know, during hunting season when I'm not shooting my tournament bow enough. But that's, I think, just to keep my muscles built up. It's nothing, you know, it's not anywhere close to the same, that bow compared to my bow.
Yeah. But it'd be cool if somebody could build a bow that made it feel the same. It would be really cool that you could travel with it easy.
Yeah.
But I've yet to see it. No more questions? Well, thank you guys. Yeah, this has been a really fun bunch. And like I said, I do like this because, I mean, there was a lot of questions that were things that I would have never thought of. So I really do like this, so I appreciate it. So, well, thank you guys for all showing up and coming. And so, good luck to you.